Looks like I am live. Well, okie dokie. I'm gonna go to Discord real quick and post something over there. Just so all the eager beavers who are wondering when I shall be live streaming. Boop 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 boop. So I'm basically posting that I'm live now. So, live streaming. Okay. Hello, friends. I know it's short notice. It always is. I always harbor plans to somewhat tighten up my approach to live streaming in my YouTube channel, and then in the heat of the moment I tend not to change much. So here we are, just live streaming. Well, what are we doing? The main thing is yesterday, of course, was spent working on something completely different, a commercial project. And so over the last week or so, this whole sequence that does in fact carry us through to the end of the episode was all storyboarded. So what I'm looking at today is, okay, if let's turn all the layers off except the sketch layer. So what we see here is we've got this pose, 1, 2. That's not 3 because this and this are actually the same pose, right? If we can take our assets and just resize them. So there's only 2 poses, still 2. The only thing different here is his eyes have changed direction. Still 2. 3. Then this is easy because it's a silhouette. We've used that one before. We've used that before. So up until actually this frame right here, arguably we only actually have 3 drawings. So what I'm doing today is I'm saying, okay, let's do the ink and paint on each of those 3 and see how far we can stretch in terms of reuse. And it's going pretty well so far. One thing you do need to do, like for me, I have the tilde hotkey over the timeline. It doesn't work over the 3D view, but over the timeline, the tilde key solos the active layer. It effectively turns this auto lock inactive layers off and on quickly, which is quite useful. In this case, what I want to do is lock the sketch layer so that I can't accidentally move any of these keyframes, and then I can take these 3 keys and use them as a group: shadows, lines, and fills. And by doing that, basically I was able to take this and turn it into this, took this, very quickly turned it into this, yada yada yada. I just use sculpting here to get the interaction, blah blah blah. So this is turning out to be pretty efficient, you know. Obviously we'll have to put in lip sync, but at the end of the day, let me just play this for a second. Placid Asher. If it wasn't for his meddling, we wouldn't be in this mess, says Golik. That's right. Destiny is a funny thing. Did you want this marriage that came about in a matter of days? I know you didn't. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know what the dialogue is. But you can see, this is about... Golly, I mean, this is about 40 seconds of show. I mean, if we can jam the backgrounds in here, the lip sync will be pretty quick. I mean, we do anime style lip sync. It's basically 3 phoneme lip sync. This is pretty stupidly quick. So anyway, I think the gist of it is that basically using Blender for everything but backgrounds seems to be paying off in a big way. And I will say, actually, I've got another, as I say, a commercial project I can show. The this this I posted on the Discord yesterday. Nobody seemed to notice it, but I put it in the works in progress. I thought this was kind of cool. And this is part of this commercial project, which, because there's an NDA, I can't really show anything real about it or say anything specific about it. But this is fine to share. I mean, this is just an animation. But the idea is here you've got a point in an app where the user is being asked to please wait, and this iconic or icon mascot type character is basically kind of keeping them entertained while they kill time. But this was fun because it's basically 12 and 24 frame per second animation, which is always fun to get back to. We're pretty much relegated to 8 frames per second on Salt and Light, and I usually adhere to that, although sometimes in the video editing stage it'll change. I'll actually speed things up or slow them down, you know, in the process of video editing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just turn everything off but the lines. Actually, I can do this, but it doesn't actually turn them off, so I really don't want to see them. One of the problems you do have, and let me insert a blank keyframe here. One of the problems you do have when you work this way is that where, you know, in Blender, when you've got your colored and filled image, of course it's going to hold until there's another keyframe. But yet, so you say, okay, well, this is my sketch, but right now what I'm seeing is the ink and paint from the previous frame. Okay, so an obvious fix for that would be, of course, you would just insert blank keyframes all the way. The problem with that is then you're constantly having to delete them, and I don't know. I don't think there's a great answer other than what I found on this deal was do all the ink, paint, and shadows on the key poses, and then just go through the whole sequence and copy them. Copy, 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 copy. By the time you get that done, you pretty much have a clean workplace with a couple exceptions. So I hope this makes sense. By the way, another hotkey I did find out about yesterday is Alt middle mouse button. It's always bugged me that in Blender 2.8 forward, it might be in, let me think if it was 2.5. No, I think it was 2.8 forward. You could no longer, actually, I think it was 2.8.1, because I think in 2.8, I could be getting mixed up here. Somewhere in the 2.8 range, we transitioned from, and obviously you could change the hotkeys to make this work, but basically we changed from being able to click anywhere to locate in the timeline to a situation where you have to grab this little tab at the top. Now that's pretty common. A lot of software acts that way. I never liked it. I always liked it better when you could just click anywhere, but that does create ambiguity with what you're trying to do. Are you trying to click a keyframe, or are you trying to find your place? Anyway, point being, you can use Alt middle mouse to just grab and scroll around anywhere, so that's just a little bit useful. Okay, so I wonder if, yes, it does snap to the frames. I thought it would. So anyway, what I'm thinking is, let's go into draw mode, charcoal ink. We don't want charcoal ink filled, we want just charcoal ink. So what I'm thinking is, this one's sufficiently different from the earlier pictures of Vespar that I think it probably makes sense to ink this one separately. So this would be the fourth, I think the fourth pose we're seeing in this scene. So you're talking probably about a, and I'm hitting shift by the way to engage the stabilizer. Very useful, my friends, very useful indeed. Yeah, the transition from Krita to Blender for basically everything except backgrounds began, I guess it began about a month ago. And it was, I had one rant too many about how frustrating Krita was for me, and it has never not been, to be clear. It's never not been problematic in the 5 years I've been using it. But yeah, it was just punitive. It's just like, this is just not even fun, right? And so I determined to find a better way, and for me that meant reacquainting myself with Blender, which of course I used to be quite the Blender guru back in the early 2000s. And anyway, it's been a total win as far as I'm concerned. I wish I'd have done it sooner, but it's all good. So my the rants have pretty much, honestly, it's probably pretty freaky for some people who've been around here for a while, but the rants have reduced to pretty near zero in the last couple weeks, just because, you know, I held to the conceit that if I just had a workflow that freaking worked, that just wasn't like stupid beyond description, with which a lot about Krita is, even though it's an incredibly capable program, that this whole thing would become a lot more fun. And it's turned out that that's exactly the case. So Blender's got its own quirks, but they're not that many, honestly. The deeper I dive, the more I'm just liking what I see. So anyway, there's Vespar. Now let's see what we have here. Okay, so we got the close-up of Tobias. So what we're going to do is hit the tilde key to no longer solo. Now I do have to remember to lock the sketch layer. So the idea, the concept here is, well, you could argue, well, wait, Dave, why don't you go ahead and do the ink and paint? I guess we could. Let's just do the ink and paint, or the paint, I should say, right now. So we'll go to the fills layer, right? Go to the fills layer, and let's just knock this out quick. So we'll go click. Okay, why is that not filling? I need to get the, okay, something's wrong. Ah, the fill layer was turned off. Yeah, usually if that's a thing, and it's kind of the difference I'm describing. In Blender, when something very strange happens, it's probably because you made a mistake. When in Krita, when something stupid happens, it's usually because the software is just being what it is, and it's. I hate to be like the Krita basher because I still use it like all the time, but it's the truth, man. It's been a love-hate relationship, man. So I'm far more at peace in Blender land lately. Okay, so Vespar's hair. Yep, that'll fill. And then we have the leather armor, which, and by the way, to be clear, the colors here all are going to change. These are not actually the correct colors for like their skin and the armor and everything. His hair, I have no idea what the color of his hair is. I've just got the labeled colors. Since it's all procedural, we can change his hair color or whatever at any time. So what's the big hurry? There is one little error here though. Let's go to the lines layer, hit the D key, go back to charcoal ink. There's a line here that I missed. That'll work. Back to the fills layer. We can always change colors up here, by the way. I really do wish though that this was scalable. Oh, I guess it is. Okay, shows what I know what I'm talking about. I clearly don't. Okay, so that's cool. Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's like every day I'm bumping into something else in Blender that I like. Now that right there I don't like. Okay, if I stretch it out like this, I want it to be like this the next time I click here too. So, and if I pin it, that has nothing to do with it. All that does is lock the material. At least I think so. Let's see. Yep, drop that down. So, a little bit of a bummer there, but you can't have everything. Okay, so let's go to shadows. Now we're going to shadow filled material. And as you can see, it was turned off. Once we start drawing, it's going to create a keyframe, obviously. Poof. So I didn't live stream yesterday because well, I spent the whole day working on that commercial project. I wanted to hit it hard yesterday. Okay, one thing I would like to do is, and by the way, why does, this is a little strange. Okay, yeah, shadows has masking. I don't know how the lines and the fills got masking turned back on. It's a little strange, but we'll keep rocking with it. Okay, so the advantage of not soloing the layer you're working on, which by the way, in most cases, most of the time, it's probably a good idea to solo the layer you're working on. The reason you unsolo, which I wish, let me look here. Let me check something. I'm going to lock this. Just let me check something here real quick. I'm going to auto lock inactive layers, and then I'm going to turn that off. Lock. Okay, so it doesn't, so it unlocks it, but it's still high, it's still hidden. Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way to toggle between these. Yeah, see, look at that. You see what just happened? I unsoloed it, and this layer is, this is a little strange because this is showing as not seen. So these are only dark and uneditable if they're locked. Has nothing to do with whether it's visible or not. So obviously, for very obvious reasons, when I unlock, that unlocks even the one layer that I prefer to keep locked. So I'll have to think about that. There's probably a little bit of a workaround. Anyway, the reason to have all the layers free and open is so that you can, for example, here I could say go into smoothing mode, and I want to smooth all the layers together. Okay, stop this. I don't want a selection. Right? They all move together, and then I can use the grab tool, and any sculpting I do is going to likewise affect all the layers together, which is definitely pretty useful. Now, are there artifacts introduced here and there? Yeah. If you put it this way, if that happens and it's a big problem for you, you don't like it, try the pinch tool. So the pinch tool, I don't know, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It looks like it's probably not the right choice here. Maybe smooth? Yeah, smooth is, well, okay. Okay. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, worst case scenario is you go to the fill layer, actually solo it, so you can actually just fine tune. So, all is not perfect in Paradise, but generally works pretty well. Okay, so that's fine. Does that help? Not really. Again, the only way I can adjust this is to, there you go. Not a big deal. There's always a way. All right, let's see what happens on the next frame. Let's unsolo this. And we do want to keep the sketch layers locked. So as I say, unfortunately, I have to keep remembering to relock it. Okay, so what we have here is, again, leverage. Boom. Done. This one, that shot is this. Okay. Now for this shot, I could just enlarge the previous one, but I'm going to actually just go back to this. Now, if you're watching and you're thinking, well, is that going to be, like, is there going to be too much repetition in my edit if I, and I can say emphatically, absolutely not. If you've ever edited oops, okay, that was a mistake. If you've ever edited a TV or movie, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so now Vespar's looking down. Oh, I guess it's this one. I guess we'll go with this and see if this fits. Yep, that was the shot. And then this is actually the one we just inked a minute ago, more or less. So we'll grab these guys, pop them down here. His eyebrow needs to change, so let's go to the lines layer. Just to be safe, we'll solo it. And yeah, this is going to be tricky. So I'm going to go into edit mode. Just do it this way. Linked X. Delete those strokes. Let's get rid of the sketch for a moment. Yep, we still have an erroneous stroke here. Select linked, shift, grab those guys, delete all those points, strokes, whatever you want to say. This is also likewise erroneous. D key needs to be charcoal ink, lines layer, and then let's pop up the sketch again. Yeah, okay. So it's just something of this nature. And on we go. Turn the sketches back on. You can see that this is not this one, but this one. Okay, unsolo the layers, but remember to lock the sketch, because I don't want to accidentally drag the sketch keys around. Reason being that, yes, it's the same pose as back here, but the dialogue's different. Okay, well, there you go. That's going to be that. Oh, okay. Yes, I was just checking to make sure I had done the shadows. Okay, and then this, okay, this is interesting. I'm going to go with this one, actually. With minor changes, I believe that's going to work fine. Yeah, it is, in fact, the actual drawing I used in the storyboard. Clearly. So, I think I just saw something go down in the chat out of the corner of my eye. Nope, nothing. No one cares. No one cares about the drudgery of actual, real animation. Well, as long as we're on that subject, it reminds me of something I pondered in my journaling this morning. Oop, this is going to be this. So this is pretty cool, because once that's, okay, so here we go. Let's turn the fills and the lines and the shadows off for a minute and just look at what happened here. Okay, so we got this little change. Okay, so let's rock and roll with this. The rule is you're going to be going into sculpt mode, so E key. So we're going to use twist, and we're going to make it pretty big. The rule is if you want it to twist to the left, you hit plus, and to the right you hit minus, and fortunately these are placed correctly. At first I thought maybe they weren't. This would make more sense to me if this was L and R, not plus and minus, actually. But you can see nice little tweak there, and then just a slight adjustment, and there you go. Okay, and now this one's kind of interesting too, because this one, so we're going to have to compensate a little bit on the top here. Poof, poof. Still nothing going on in the chat though today. As I say, apparently no one cares about the plight of the lonely animator. That's okay. I don't really care. I'm here to offer helpful tidbits if people people want them. Okay, yeah, so this is going to be, yeah, we definitely need to tweak this in a big way. All right, so we're going to go D key, E key, edit mode. Sorry, wrong. Tab. Tab. Let's grab these and these. In fact, let's do this a different way just to make it fun. So I'm going to hit the L key. Now watch this. I'm going to hit D and then E to go back into sculpt mode, but I'm going to turn this on so that the sculpting is going to be limited to only the selection. In this mode, if you hit Shift Spacebar, you can actually use Select Lasso to change the selection. But for now, this allows me to do whatever the heck I want with his eyebrows very smoothly and intuitively. Don't have to actually redraw them. Hit the tab key to grab these guys. And G, why don't we even cheat some more and not even redraw those? What the heck? Okay, so now I see one thing I don't particularly love, by the way. And I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to just zoom way in. Yeah, just do a little erasing there. Okay, E key. I'm feeling like this is a whoops. Okay, little mistake. I need to turn this back off. Okay, stop. Undo. This. Tilde. My layers have to be all turned on so they move together. Okay. Boom. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Now, the good thing about this type of situation is, let's go ahead and play with this for a minute. Let's take this. Let's turn we'll unlock the sketch layer as well for a moment. I'm just going to give myself another tween because there's something I'm going to do right now that I've been wanting to learn. Okay, so I know that you can do this. I just don't know how to do it. So I'm going to go into D for draw mode. And what I want to do is I want to do a tween. Now, traditionally and normally what I do is I just go between the affected keys and hit Control-Shift-E. And now as you notice, if you're going to do that, you have to do it on every layer individually. If somebody in the chat knows, by the way, I don't think there is a way to get Blender to do interpolation on 3 layers at the same time. As far as I know, that is not doable. Okay, so as you can see, this is a nice tween. What I was wondering, and I'm going to slide all this downstream. What I'm wondering now is how do you do the tweening that isn't automatic? That's what I want to figure out right now. So first of all, I've been doing it with the hotkey, so as comically stupid as it probably looks, I actually don't even remember what menu. Okay, here it is. Interpolate sequence. So this interpolates a sequence, but where is the option to just interactively interpolate? A bit strange. Is it Shift-D instead of Control-Shift? Maybe? No? Anybody know? What the heck's the hotkey to do interactive interpolation like we, used to be able to do? I seriously do not know. Why would they have... See, this is strange to me. If this menu has interpolate sequence on it, then... here we go. It's Control-E. Okay, let's see. So not Shift-E, Control-E. So Control-Shift-E does it automatically, and Control-E? Yes. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm going to do it just enough to create like a leading tween. Like that. Okay, now let's just keep going with this. If we don't like it, we can always, actually, let's leave the shadows. Let's do the fills. We can always just, cut these keyframes back out, so no big deal. Okay. So I assume that did the trick. Yeah, that's just a little tiny change. Okay, that's cool. Control E. So now I know. Now I know that the answer is Control E. Perfect. Boom. Boom. Nice. Okay. So this whole sequence is done. Actually, of course, we've got the whole... I guess we'd call this a sequence. This is actually a scene. This is one scene in the show. So all we got to do is get the lip sync in there. And so the question today was, if I do ink and paint early in the scene so that I can copy all keys downstream, does it actually turn out to be a win? And I would say today, I would say emphatically yes, absolutely. So let's go to E. Here we've got the fills layer soloed. I want to go in here, just make this little adjustment that I noticed a moment ago. Cool. Okay. So yeah, this whole sequence just needs lip sync and then backgrounds, and it's done. Pretty impressive. Now, to be fair, what will probably happen is this will get exported into Krita. I'll probably place the backgrounds in Krita, and then I'll be able to also add gradients and whatnot to make it a little bit more interesting color-wise and whatnot. So, all right, let's keep rocking then. Who's here? We got a couple concurrent viewers. As I say, it's interesting. Hang on, I'm gonna go get my. I gotta grab my notepad. Hang on 1 second. I'll be back in like 1 minute. I'll just let this play for a moment. Okay, I'm back, and I know this looks like a bunch of nonsense, but I figured sometimes people will say that they will listen to my live streams in the background, kind of like a podcast kind of thing. So I will share what while I work here, I will share what I was pondering today in my journaling. Okay, so these guys all have, I mean, the truth of the matter is, it's one of those just choices you have to make. Like here I did the ink, and so since they're just moving, there's no reason to ink the other two lines because it's just going to be moved or resized. I would have to say, broadly speaking, it is better to go ahead and add the color and the shadows. Make it all complete as much as possible and reuse that. So up until this scene I just worked on, I've got a lot of stuff that's inked that will actually have to be colored frame by frame because I inked it. You get what I'm saying? What I should have done is colored everything in, put in all the shadows, and then copied the keyframes. So I copied the keyframes, but just from the ink alone, and sometimes did some sculpting to make the new keyframe more appropriate to the pencil test. So that means at the color stage, I kind of have more work to do through this whole first section than probably strictly necessary, which is kind of sad, but oh well. Okay, so here we've got, we need to insert blank keyframes across the board here, just so we've got a good place to start. Okay, so we're going to be in the lines layer. The sketch layer could probably be turned back down a bit. Okay, D key. So this is more traditional animation, or inspired by traditional animation, in the sense that this is a shot that is not going to repeat. This is not a dialogue scene. We got to do this the hard way. But the good news is the hard way is the fun way. So, what did I put in my journaling today? I put that I see a parallel for me, because as some of you who know me better, you know that I not only do the animation of this show, but I also do the musical score. So I'm a pretty artsy-fartsy creative kind of guy, and very well versed in art and music. So anyway, I saw this parallel between art and music, and the parallel was that for me, I see myself a little bit as a somewhat deficient practitioner in that I don't know if I ever had an original idea in my life, tell you the truth. So when I have some sort of reference material that either inspires me, you know, from which you sort of spawn off a new idea or whatever, I tend to be very adept at coming up with stuff pretty quickly and blah, 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 blah. But yet, lacking that reference or some sort of inspirational material, I very quickly resort back to just, you know, it's like after sketching, after looking at my book of Frazetta sketches, I'm doing all this, you know, I'm basically doing this Frazetta type stuff where, you know, you've got these big bottomed women, you know, voluptuous, you know, this would be a female from behind kind of thing, right? So, you know, and you got all this, it's all anatomy and it's all excitement and blah, 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 blah. Right? And the minute I put the book away, I'm not really copying, but I think it's interesting because, and I see the same thing with music, is once I don't have some externalized reference to sort of bounce off of, to use as a starting point, I tend to just fall back on, you know, I'm just going to draw a stupid little, you know what I mean? Like, where did Frazetta go? I thought that's interesting. So there's a lesson there that I thought was kind of interesting, which is that reference materials, this is why one time on one of my live streams, I told you guys, I said, look, I'll paraphrase it. Basically, if you look at you know, Family Guy or something, if you're an animation purist, like you love that Disney thing and blah blah blah, and you look at Family Guy and you go, you kind of look at it with disdain, you know, it's like really simple, and you know, or the Flintstones, pick your poison, Hanna-Barbera cartoons, you know, Saturday morning cartoons from the 70s. If you look at that stuff with disdain, then I would challenge you, okay, copy 30 seconds of it. Actually reproduce 30 seconds of the Flintstones, because what's going to happen is, number one, you're going to learn a lot doing that, and number two, you're going to find out it's not as easy as you think it is. You're going to find out it's actually kind of hard to get something that actually looks like it's ready to air on television, kind of thing, right? So what does reference do for us? Well, it challenges us. You know, it puts us right in our face, the areas where we're deficient and we still need to learn and grow. It guides us because it can spawn a new idea. And it educates us. You know, as I say, if you copy something, even if it's something you don't particularly like, when you copy it, you have to, you know, you find you're being strict with yourself to say, well, if I'm going to do this, it has to look indistinguishable from the reference material. And then you find out that, yeah, the drawings are simple, but actually the animation's pretty well thought out, for example, because they're getting a lot of entertainment value out of a small frame rate, for example. And your reference material reminds you of what you're aiming for, what you're even trying to achieve on your own project. So having reference material is pretty good. Um, so here's the part about it that I found to be a very insightful, or I should say a profound insight. The profound insight was this, and this is what I would want to share for the neophyte animation practitioner that's still trying to figure out where your work fits in the world. Who maybe beats yourself up because you find, like me, that once the reference or inspiration material is no longer there in front of you, you tend to resort back to, either bad habits or a style that doesn't feel as sophisticated as the stuff you admire, blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing you want to remember. So long as an image or an animation or a piece of music is, to you, novel and inspiring, all that means is that the lessons that could be gleaned from that reference material are not yet internalized. It still has stuff to teach you. Okay, you haven't turned everything there is to know about the Flintstones into a habit. You have not. You haven't integrated it into your style. That's specifically why you find other people's work to be novel and or inspiring. In other words, when you get really, really, really competent, you find there's less and less out there that actually inspires or impresses you. So this just means you have more to learn, that's all. Put conversely, the material that inspires you today you would not find it inspiring. You would find it boring if the lessons that can be gleaned from it were already integrated into your style. By definition, the whole reason you find it inspiring is because you're not there yet. So that's okay. You just got stuff to learn. But yeah, here's the thing that's interesting. We know that deep improvement and real understanding and really mature craft comes from going deep, not going wide. What do I mean by that? Well, going wide would be flitting from pillar to post on YouTube looking for the next tutorial that's going to give you the magic secret to make all of this work easy. That's, of course, as stupid can be. But people do it all the time and waste not hours, but years looking for that magical answer that, of course, doesn't actually exist. And so the way you get better is not by going wide. In other words, being very, very, having just a very cursory acquaintance with all kinds of interesting styles or techniques. In other words, you're never going to be good at anything working that way. You can get some cool initial ideas, and they can steer you in a direction that is helpful. But if you go from that to just going out and trying to find more novel material, you'll never get good at anything, ever. So what does that suggest? Well, go ahead and be inspired, but you want to look more closely, because this is the sort of non-intuitive but profound fact that occurred to me. If you look at your reference material and it's not boring to you, if it's actually novel and inspiring to you, then you haven't looked deeply enough at it yet. There's still more to learn. But here's the crazy part. If it is boring to you, the same thing is true. If it is boring to you, you haven't looked closely enough. Most of the learning occurs when you do the deep dive on the material that is actually not particularly inspiring to you anymore, but you force yourself to try to look deeper. And you start noticing things that you simply didn't and couldn't notice before. I thought that was kind of interesting. Either way, you are moving from being viscerally impressed with just a feeling that, like, the feeling we call inspiration or whatever. You're going from that to going to a more measured alpha state where you're grokking the material and you're truly understanding it. Those are two completely different levels. The first can get you to the second, but only with effort. Many people that say they want to be practitioners in a given domain, like animation, don't actually. They don't actually want to master it. They don't actually want to tell stories. What they do want is to feel good. And they feel good when they encounter stuff that either inspires them or feels novel, you see. That's not a bad starting point, but it doesn't end there. It's only the first step, right? So this, what I'm calling A and B, A is being viscerally impressed with a feeling of inspiration. Oh, this is exciting. And B would be the alpha state where you're just leaning down and you've grokked the material, you really understand it, and you're putting it into practice. The first is very frenetic and it's very jizzed up. It feels good though, but it's like sugar or cocaine or it's a drug. Whereas the second is very calm. It's very measured. One of the reasons I switched from Krita to Blender was because I needed to move from being too jizzed up, both by positives or negatives, to a more measured approach, and it's paid off. I mean, it's been a good move for me for sure. Let's see here. This picture, I guess we could do this. I'm not sure why I did this as a silhouette, but oh, I see. I got it. We're gonna watch him poke out, and then it's gonna immediately jump cut to a close-up. Got it. No, anyway, maybe you guys find those ideas insightful or helpful, maybe not. Don't know. I don't know, man, because nobody's talking. But I think about these things pretty much every day. You know, I really just always have a bit of a journaling time in the morning. Boom. I know that's not quite what was in the sketch, but that's okay. We don't care. We just want it to look good. And now I'm turning on the stabilizer. Boom. And boom. And boom. So yeah, somebody's here. Several people are watching, but nobody's talking today. That's cool. Whatever makes you happy, friends. All right, I'm going to go to the front view and flip it so I can. Okay, and then I'm going to go tab, grab this guy. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. And it's because the sketch layer should not be accessible right now. So I'm going to hit the L key, select length, Shift D, SX -1, flips it on the X-axis, hit rotate, and put this over here. So basically I matched the eyebrows. D key, back to drawing, and back to the camera view. Okay, so here we're going to want to close that shape, which you can see that's going to create a problem here because that needs to be closed as well. And I guess we probably could put some indication of his shirt right there. Onward and upward. Okay, that's just a blink, so we don't need to do anything with that, nor would we want to. What I'm trying to do is take the wisdom, whatever I learned from this scene and apply it to this one. And the main thing would be, once I have some art that I might be reusing, then I really don't want to start copying over the lines until I first got the color in there. Otherwise, I'm just kind of pissing in the wind. Now, this is the background of the tavern. It's what Mel sees. I'm going to have to do a digital painting of this. So for those who are wondering, right? So he's looking around. Boop, boop. Oh, there, the tavern. And then smash zoom to there. And then here we see Melchizedek waltzing in. And for this shot, oopsie, what do we got going here? Lines. Oh, it's hidden. Boop. I just want to put a shape that I can fill his hair into. boom, 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 boom. Okay, that'll work. That these arrows just mean he's animating into the shot. Okay. Here, same situation, and this is going to be interesting actually. Let me think about this for a second. I'm going to do something radical here. I am going to do something very unusual, which is I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to call it background. Golly, I almost want to, I know this is kind of a little bit of a crazy approach here. I'm going to go, I know this looks insane. I'm literally putting this in here just as a marker. Cause in, I don't know about Blender 4, but in Blender 2.9.3, which is what I'm using, you can't have like subfolders. And frankly, it would probably make more sense, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, to just create a second grease pencil object. But for now, we'll go with this. Okay, so if we put in another layer, we'll call this 2. And actually, I'm going to move that one up. Okay, I'll show you right now why I'm doing this. Even without using vertex painting, there's actually some pretty good capability in Blender for doing backgrounds. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because this shadow is going to, let's just put in a keyframe by the way, this shadow is going to bop through the doorway, which means that this needs to be in front. That would be easy to accomplish in Krita, just saying. And usually I have been doing the background still in Krita, so this is really kind of an experiment. But the idea would be something like this. You're basically saying, okay, let's just grab a color. And we will use the, gosh, let's use, I think what I'll do is actually grab this, because this is a stroke color, this is a fill color. So if we kind of borrow these for a moment, this might not make perfect sense, but what the relationship between vertex painting and materials is a little strange if you're not used to it. And bottom line is, if you're in vertex paint mode, you can actually switch between materials and brushes, and vertex paint mode will sort of sustain over top of whatever you change. And what that all means in practice is that you can grab any material, go into vertex paint mode so that you can, you know, pick your colors. And when you want a when you want to go from a fill material to a stroke material, you can just switch materials and keep working with vertex painting. As you can see, when I switch between these, this sits and doesn't change. You see? I don't know if that made sense, but Santi Salas Films, agree with what you're saying. I always feel like you can do something when you see others and get inspired, but it takes a lot of effort and overcome the insecurity that lets you do it. Well, okay, and by the way, welcome. I haven't seen you here before. So the question then becomes, well, you know, you've said a mouthful. You say it takes a lot of effort to overcome the insecurity that lets you do it. So the question you must ask yourself is, what is it? Where's that insecurity coming from? Why would I feel insecure? Okay, and while you're pondering that question, I got to look at. Okay. Very, very good. I need to hit undo here. Come on. Undo. I've done too much clicking. Blender literally remembers everything you did, so sit tight here, folks. Okay. All right. This is the mistake. This should be stroke and fill. At least I'm pretty sure. So we're just grabbing a material that happens to be a solid material and then switching to vertex paint just so I can grab the color, just so I can pick whatever color I want. This is going to be the interior of the wall. And the thing I was going to demonstrate here that I think is kind of interesting would be, like in this case, we could go back to regular materials, but then use the highlight material. And bear in mind, guys, this is a bit of an experiment. I don't know that it's going to really work out or if I'm going to really like the idea. Okay. So I'm just going to play with this for a minute, and I'm making no promises. So let's just say that the building is stone, right? It's stonework. So, and what we're trying to do is move fast. That's what we're trying to do. So, the stonework, that I didn't like that. Okay. So this highlight material, this is just it's just a very transparent white material. And my shadow filled layer is basically the complete opposite. Whereby, if I go like this, okay, that is going to be too dark. Okay, let me think about this for a minute. I'm going to take this material. I'm very curious about something. If we switch this to vertex paint mode and change the color, notice, if you didn't know this, when you switch colors in vertex paint mode, if I'm not mistaken, alpha is not one of the options. So what I'm wondering right now, I've never done this before. What I'm wondering is if I take my highlight material, which is white, and just switch to vertex paint mode specifically so I can change it to black, does it still retain, 85% transparent? If it does, it does. Awesome. That makes it easy. So now I can add shadows and to these stones like stupidly quick and easy, right? So yeah, the question is, Santi Salas Films, I don't know anything about you, so I don't know if you're, a particularly young person or whatever. But I love your comment because I sympathize greatly with right brain creative types who, for whatever reason, struggle a little bit with their lack of confidence or whatever. I mean, I'm kind of lucky that way, in that a great deal of that type of thing I overcame, I should say, at a fairly young age, basically from doing sales, actually. But yeah, this is kind of an interesting approach. So, but if you're willing to answer, the question I have is for you, what represents the real core crux of, if there's insecurity, that's pretty serious. So if there's insecurity, where's that coming from? Okay, by the way, when the opacity is at the material level as opposed to the layer level, it builds up on itself, as you'll see right here. You see that? See how that builds up on itself? So it means that if you're going for anime style backgrounds that pretty much only have like 3 levels of light to dark, then just using these semi-transparent overlays in vertex paint mode is kind of a pretty quick and easy way to operate. Now the problem is, ultimately, this is way easier in Krita. So I don't actually think I love what I'm doing here, but just for fun, since we're here, let's look at our layers and make sure oops. Why is that got Blender? You're being a silly goose. Blender wants to turn on onion skins by default when you make a new layer. By the way, I included this because I thought I was going to do these overlays on a different layer, but actually, for now, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go like this, SX-1 to flip this. And obviously, that's a bit gratuitous because it's obviously a reversal of the same thing. So I'm going to put this, I'm just going to move this up top. I would say all in all, I don't love what I did here, and I don't think I'm going to stick with this direction. All in all, basically, doing backgrounds in Krita still remains really kind of a lot better way to operate. Okay, so on the lines layer then, let me see what we have here. Yes, on the lines layer, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch to, well, D key. I'm going to go back to material mode, and what I want is just charcoal ink filled. Okay, because we're just doing a silhouette here, right? So let's just do the silhouette of Melchizedek. And, okay, so you're not answering the question, so that's fine. You may not want to, or you may be gone. You know, who knows? But I would say that I think for a young person anyway, who might deal with creative insecurity or whatever, by far the best advice is to race headlong into whatever scares you the most as quickly as you can. Whatever it is, just race into it. Because what you're going to do is you're always going to find out the reality of it is nowhere near as scary as the you know, the pictures in your head. Okay, so in this again was a bit of a bust. So I'm going to just insert a blank keyframe on that layer. In the lines layer, we can also insert a blank keyframe and get back to work. So D key. Oh, I'm not sure, but I get easily demotivated by learning some hobbies I enjoy. I'm confident in my skills, but I think maybe I get overzealous instead of having more measured goals. That's a pretty well thought out answer, I guess. I need to switch materials. You get demotivated by learning some hobbies I enjoy. Does that mean that you get bored? Like once you're actually, this kind of ties in with what I was saying. In other words, once you're actually competent at something or have done the deep dive and really learned it, that you just lose motivation. Is that what you're saying? I mean, because that's understandable. That's what I was saying about you actually have to look deeper, typically. I probably should turn on the stabilizer. All right, let's see what we have. Oh my God, I can't believe I actually I actually ended that line in the right place. That was pure coincidence. Pure coincidence, friends. Now it's weird. I mean, I I I talk about such things on YouTube only because I feel like probably the kinds of people that normally would watch my channel are going to be people who are, they're fledgling animators. They're probably wanting to do something along the lines of what I'm doing, not stylistically, but just in terms of doing it. Like in other words, animators are an interesting bunch because they have this desire to, if not tell stories, they certainly have the desire to sort of bring pictures to life, as it were, right? And there's so much misinformation out there about the way the real world works in the creative domain. I mean, the truth is that networks and platforms, they're all looking for talented people with a good idea. But more than that, what they're looking for is the person that can execute. Who can go from an idea to actually producing something that could be exploited, basically, right? It doesn't matter how good your idea is if you can't execute. I think I'm gonna leave Mel there. What do we have here? Golly, another. See, this is another. Oh, oh, I see. Okay, this is a continuation of this. The guy moves in front of him. Okay, so I'm gonna actually remove this keyframe. There's no reason for that to be in there. This is what I want to see. So let's go. Boop. All right. I think it's more that I imagine I can get really good at something, for example, animation. And then I picture something really advanced when I haven't even practiced walk cycles. It feels like I'm on a long path that leads to a mountain, and I imagine myself on that mountain, but then I started walking, and I realize how long the path is. Okay, that helps a lot. That helps my understanding of what you're saying. Okay, so if I was counseling you, the first question I would ask you then, in light of that, is everything you just said sounds perfectly normal and natural. Um, but there's something inside of you that clearly is telling you that you should or must have the skill set associated with, say, walk cycles, before you take on something big. Now, that is true if what you want to take on that's big demands walk cycles. But it sounds like the most important thing you need to tune into is, what do you want to see on the screen? What's the story you want to tell? Because it could be, and this is, I've kind of dealt with this myself, so I can kind of relate to it, is it could be that just the idea of animation is kind of like compelling or interesting to you, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't actually really want to do it. That's probably true of a lot of people. I'm not saying that's you. I'm saying it could be, right? And to someone who's dealing with that sort of a question or dilemma, my comment is always going to be, well, the important thing is that you do what makes you happy. You tell the story you want to tell, because especially in animation, because it's such a big job. So to get anything done at all is so much work that you're insane to be giving any consideration to anything anybody else might want to see. Number one, you don't know. You're just guessing. And number two, who cares? Now, it's different if you were doing but see, if you're the kind of person who can look at a challenge, say a skill challenge, which I'm this kind of person, I can relate to it. Everything I've ever done in the music domain, in the animation domain, I mean, if you watch Salt and Light, you can kind of see what I'm capable of animation-wise. If you watch Healed by Grace 2, you're going to see what I'm capable of in terms of writing and directing a feature film. If you listen to the music, okay, I'm 100% self-taught. Okay, so I can relate to the person who is able to look at an arena or a challenge and go, God, I'd like to do that. I think I could do that. That's the story of my life. I look at something, I go, God, I think I could do that. And the fact is, in most cases, you probably can. Doesn't mean it'll necessarily be successful or make you money or blah, 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 but you probably can do it. But nobody's going to get into any kind of animation thing unless they're really committed to the concept. Because there's just way too much work involved. It's not something you can really poke at, right? So, okay. So this is, I actually needed to verbally talk this through. So my advice to somebody like you would be this. This is actually serious advice. Now, I don't know how much else you've done, and it could be that your competence is way beyond what I'm assuming here. But here's the thing. What I would do if I were you is come up with some sort of concept that's only 30 seconds long. It could be a joke. It doesn't have to be a joke. But something that's about 30 seconds long. If you take this sequence that I just inked and painted today, this is probably a minute and a half, I'll bet. Once this whole thing is edited and pasted out and the dialogue's in there, it's probably a minute and a half. So you're talking about what would take 30 seconds or so. Probably about this much. You see a village, guy comes around the corner, you see a reaction, cuts to a new shot, these guys approach each other and this guy says something to him. You're probably getting in the 30-second zone. Well, if you choose a project that's only 30 seconds long, and the easiest way to define that project, if you're open-minded and you don't really care what you do, you're like, well, what should I do? If you're that person, then look at probably a TV commercial would be a good choice, because they're all 30 seconds long. And so, and I'm sort of tripping over this by accident, but it's probably true for all fledgling animators. One of the best things you could ever do for yourself is try to copy a television commercial, because you're going to encounter all kinds of challenges that you don't even know what the potential challenges are. This is an interesting thing also about animators, like your comment about a walk cycle. Well, as an animator person, you're aware of walk cycles. You're aware of them. You can kind of peg what your level of competence is dealing with walk cycles, but the important thing is you know what a walk cycle is. But when you go and you copy a TV commercial, it doesn't have to be fully animated. It could be a mix of live action and animated. It could be a lot of things. And it could be only 10 seconds. It doesn't have to be 30 seconds. But when you approach that thing, you're going to immediately find out 10 things, 100 things that you literally didn't even know you were going to bump into. And the important thing to understand is you couldn't have known. You couldn't have. There is no way, there is no YouTuber that's going to tell you anything. There is no textbook ever. And I'm talking as a guy that's made 8 feature films and 2 full 24-minute cartoon episodes. I know about producing entertainment media top to bottom, beginning to end. I wrote all the scripts. I wrote all the music. In the cartoon, I did all the voices, the whole thing, other than the girls, other than 2 girl voices, one of which was my daughter. Okay, so I do know of what I speak here. And what happens is when you really copy something, what happens is now you're not dealing with your own tastes and judgments. You're dealing with what the industry says is good enough to, let's just say, air on television. So that's a good starting point to begin with, because your sort of moral compass, as it were, from the standpoint of the standards you set for yourself, are in the right place, because you're comparing yourself to real work by real people that's somebody paid for. That's much better. All this nonsense about, the neophytes always like to talk about things like originality, which is just absolute nonsense. There is no originality. In fact, what I shared this morning says that for me, honestly, I don't know that I've ever had an original idea in my life. But what you find is, in practice, just the fact that you are you, the fact that you're going to bring your unique set of sensibilities to something, even if you're copying it, even if it's an attempt at a copy, you can't help putting your unique imprint on it. And so you have so what happens is your style or your originality basically emerges by accident. It just is. It's not something you have to think about or try. Once you do real work, your style you will begin to see and learn what your real style is. You'll also learn something that you couldn't possibly have known until you do something that's hard, even if it's only a 10-second segment. What you will learn is, do you really want to do this after all? Because the truth is, as long as you're out on the edges and you're looking at it from outside and thinking about it and intrigued by it, you don't actually know if this is something you want to do. Because you don't know what the real workload is. You don't know what the real problems are going to be. It may turn out that you love the energy of a pencil test. And this is true of me, by the way. I will tell you. I love the energy of a pencil test, and I find ink and paint generally to be drudgery. It's just not as fun, because all the storytelling is at the sketch stage. This is where all the storytelling takes place. This is where all the fun is, for me, right? But being an unabashed entrepreneur, and given that the show is making money, there's a pragmatic side of me that says, well, I guess I can suffer through, doing some things that I don't necessarily love to do, because there's a bigger goal than just my own creative fulfillment at this moment in time. Hope that makes sense. But yeah, for most fledgling animators that have comments kind of along the lines that you've posted here, my friend, that would be my advice to you. Because what's coming through to me is, as somebody with maybe more experience, what's coming through to me is that You're looking at this thing and you find it interesting and intriguing, but you don't yet actually really know if it's something you would really want to do. And the only way you can find out is to just dive in and do it. And it needs to be something, it can be something short, but it should be something that's hard. So the lesser comment that kind of relates to, what is it you said there? I think that the important thing is your comment at 12:15. You say, I think it's more that I imagine I can get really good at something. Okay, I want to really say something emphatically to you. Okay, and this is, I'm almost 60 years old. So again, I've got some life experience behind me, both in the entertainment media space and in just life in general. And I will tell you, if you think that maybe you could get good at it, I will guarantee you with absolutely no reservation that you could. Absolutely. No question about it. Everybody that's doing this work, you know, out in Hollywood or whatever, they're just people, just like you. And the difference between, you know, them and someone that is kind of, you know, outside wishing they were part of that thing, the only difference between them is that the first person did it. They just did it. They dove in. They made all kinds of mistakes, learned all kinds of things, made all kinds of contacts, which in some contexts that is important, right? If you think you could do it, I guarantee you 100% you absolutely could. That's the story of my life. Everything I've ever decided I thought I wanted to do or I thought would be interesting or maybe I could, it always turned out, yep, you can. It's not even a problem. Is it easy? Hell no. No, it's not easy. And, you know, I've talked about that here before, is that when you, all right, you've convinced me I'm going to stop procrastinating, start working on something. Yeah, then good. Good. Yeah, just do something. Just do something. Because then you've got something you can look at and actually you can go, okay, step back from it. You might, you know, if you kick yourself initially, wow, I really suck at this. Look, let me put it this way. With animation in particular, if you, this is probably the best advice I can give to anybody that's trying to dive into the animation sandbox, would be this. When you're working, and this will probably happen like right away, okay? What'll happen is while you're working, you're going to be dealing with either a plot point in your story, or you're going to be dealing with some dialogue, or you're going to be dealing with a drawing. It doesn't matter. What's going to happen is you are going to put some dialogue down on, you know, on your laptop, or you're going to draw a picture, and it is not going to feel right. Okay, you're going to get a feeling in your gut that goes, yeah, I don't know, this sucks. This isn't, I'm not where, this is not where it needs to be. You will get a feeling. At first, if you're sufficiently ignorant, and that's not a pejorative term, I mean that in the most clinical sense. Ignorance means you just don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. If you're ignorant, then your sensitivity to that might be pretty low at first. But if you've been kind of kicking at the tires of this thing for a while, you probably kind of know a little bit about yourself. And so what will happen is you're going to do something creatively, and you're going to go, I don't know, this isn't up to the standard that I am wanting to see. I'm not experiencing from myself the same feeling I get when I look at, you know, this other professional work that I admire. Well, the advice is, the minute you feel that, stop everything. And you'll hear me do it on this channel. Actually, I'll be animating, and all of a sudden I'll go, wait, stop, up. It's as if I was talking to somebody else. I'll go, stop everything. Stop. Calm down. Stop. Something's going wrong here. I've made a mistake. It might be something to do with the layers, might be the material, might be a hotkey. Something's wrong. Stop immediately and freaking figure out what you did wrong. If that means that at the storyboard stage, for example, you have to draw this character's face literally 300 times to finally get it so it looks right to you, then fucking do it 300 times. Seriously, I'm telling you. Do it 300 times. You will so thank yourself later. The instant it doesn't feel as good as you want it to be, stop everything, figure out what you did wrong, and try again and get that one little thing right. Because you're not only going to get it right, but you're also programming yourself to be the kind of practitioner that other people want to work with. You're not a person who settles. You don't make up some stupid story in your mind to excuse the fact that, well, it's probably good enough. When you know in your heart, you can feel it. It doesn't look, when I draw Bugs Bunny, it doesn't look like Chuck Jones's Bugs Bunny. Not that Chuck Jones's Bugs Bunny was really the best one, because frankly it wasn't. But that's neither here nor there. But you get my point. Catch those mistakes as early as possible, and try to be specific with yourself, where you identify exactly what it is you did wrong here. Okay, so like, what would be an example of that? In this case, it's not particularly egregious, so this will look fine in the show. One key reason is because I have the experience to know that it will look okay, and the reason it's going to look okay is because I know this guy is in motion. Okay, so that's a little bit of nuance about animation. There are some areas where you can get away with murder on the quote-unquote quality of it because it's in motion. When stuff's moving at 12 frames per second, it's just a blur to the eyes. Okay, but having said that, if we take this as a standalone drawing, it has all kinds of problems. So let's stop right here and figure out what those problems might be. Well, one is the balance. The weight here is a little off. Okay, the size of his forearm is a little aggressive. Okay, so I see all kinds of things that are wrong here. I mean, this bit here is borderline ridiculous, actually. Like this, come on. The curvature doesn't match his arm at all. Now, you can be sure I am keenly aware of these types of things all the time when I'm seeing them in my work. Part of the nuance of my personal journey or ability is that I know better when it matters and when it doesn't matter in the context of an animation. But as a standalone drawing, this has nothing but problems. I don't know. That's a little extreme. It's probably not that bad, but you get what I'm saying. That was a mistake. So that level of detail I probably would not normally engage in. And by the way, in this case, this is actually a tricky scene too, because well, let's put it this way. It's three-dimensional. So that means his hand is sticking out in front of his body. So I might be working against myself. If I want to get any leverage, for example, out of this arm, I might be doing myself a disservice to go ahead and draw the clothing in here. Why? Well, because on the next frame, when I want to put in the tweens, if I do it one way, I've got to completely redraw everything. Whereas if I do it a different way, I could probably get some leverage out of this arm and then fill in the missing stuff afterwards. So there's ideas about the order in which you do things in animation that you only figure out by just doing it, So anyway, like smear frame, exactly. I mean, I think that the thing that one of the coolest things about animation is that the more animation is almost a fixed labor enterprise, and the reason it's a fixed labor enterprise is because the more things are moving, the less you have to care what they look like. You can be sloppy if things are moving fast. Very sloppy, like absurdly sloppy. In fact, if you look at some of the anime that I like Yo-Yo Shinari's stuff, Studio Trigger. So I like, at least visually, I like Kill la Kill. I like Little Witch Academia. I dig Gurren Lagann. I don't actually like to sit and watch them that much. But so it isn't even the drawing style, although the drawing style is pretty dynamic. It's more the movement. Like when those guys put something in motion, it can be pretty frenetic and crazy and fun. And hell, there was a point here somewhere. There was a point here somewhere, but I've forgotten what the point was. Anyway, I'll quit belaboring it. I would say if you go and, even if it's 5 seconds, it doesn't have to be 10, but the discipline of doing something quote unquote real, where you're trying to adhere to the standards of quality that are similar to what you see in the media that you enjoy consuming, this is something that most fledgling animators just don't seem to get around to. And it's sad because it would improve you, and you would learn and improve quicker than like any other way, by far. And you'll not only improve, but you'll also gain a lot of discernment about yourself, about what it is you really like and what you really want to do, kind of thing. So anyway, I guess I probably beat the point to death. So, but that's really why I live stream. Frankly, I'm more productive when I just sit and just quietly do my thing my way and don't live stream. So usually when I live stream, it's because I'm just trying to connect a little bit with the community out there and help out if I can, Well, I gotta go, but thank you for yeah, great, cool. Good luck. Come back around and let us know how it goes. Is anybody else here right now? Looks like everybody's kind of, I don't know what the heck I was thinking on this sketch layer. This is a little wacky. I'm just going to take this and hit the G key and just move it up. I don't know why I did that. Poor Melchizedek looked pretty deformed. Okay, so he's just going to be standing in the doorway here for half a second while Mr. Cranky dumps the wastewater. So I'm going to be probably signing off here before too long. The crazy thing about Melchizedek in this episode is I literally don't remember if he's wearing shorts. I do not remember what he's wearing. That's pretty crazy. Crazy, man. Bring that back out a little bit more. So I guess I should check my costuming from earlier in the episode. Right? Let's pop up Vegas and see what we've got. Boom, 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 boom. We're going to jump over to here. Pull up the episode. Boom, boom. We want episode 3. And let's see. Let's go back. Well, we got the kids. And by the way, I'm going to have to steal one of these frames. Actually, as long as I'm thinking about it. Golly, he sure is in shadow, though. Well, we'll come back to that. I need to modify the colors on Tobias. And okay, here we go. So he's got a belt. The boy has a belt. We can't really tell if he's wearing pants, however. I really think it might be that nowhere in this episode did we ever actually see Melchizedek's legs. Can you believe that? I do believe that is exactly the case. Oh my. I'm going to have to go back. Well, wait. What about here? Oh, wait. It seems like we had a while. Aha. Oh, he's wearing shorts. There you go. He's wearing shorts and sandals. Got it. Sorry about that little distraction, friends. But this is clearly wrong. Skinny 15-year-old boy. Okay, well that was a fail in a big way. And I actually think that's because while he is a skinny 15-year-old boy, he does, in fact, have a butt. So there we go. Yeah, that's probably more in the zone. I'm just gonna. He's just static in the shot. I mean, he's not really doing anything. In fact, we could go anime silly mode here. That would actually be okay for this shot. Okay, now what about this? Can we cheat? I'll bet you we can cheat. Watch this. We're going to cheat in a big way. Yep, we're going to cheat right here. We're going to go into edit mode, snag this, hit Control C, go back here. Watch this. Watch how awfully I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go Control V, shrink this down, and just pop it over here. Now, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Do you think this would be even smarter if I had gotten this guy colored in first? Yeah, probably would. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control plus. Just slide this up to there. Get rid of those points. All right, D key. Boom, boom. These can be erased. We'll just kind of make it work. Okay, back to the... looks like there's nothing going on again in the chat. What? Oh, pencil. I'm just thinking about the radius of my pencil. It doesn't feel quite as reliable as I might prefer. What if we put this at like 12 and lock it? Might be okay. Might be okay. I actually think more like 10. I'm going to try that for a bit. Why not? So now it's going to behave more like a sort of a technical drawing pen or whatever. Okay. Boom. Boom. Okay, can we cheat again? Why not? Linked, duplicate, SX -1, go, boom. Yep, there we go. It is a bucket after all, so why don't we just kind of go like this? And this, can I move this? I guess I can't move it. Boom. Hit enter. Okay, so now we do have a bit of a risk here in the fact that this is probably too thin. Let's go to D. I'm going to go back to 12. It could be that 11 is the right answer, though. All right, so edit mode. I'm just going to go ahead and pop this down to here. Shrink this a little bit. D key. I said D key. Oh, yeah. All right. Erase, erase, erase. All right. And we'll just kind of connect these. Okay. Now, little minor changes, hitting the W key so I can go into tweak mode. Tweak mode makes it easier to just grab stuff and edit it really quickly. Boom. Boom. I love that. I must say, I do love that. I actually use tweak. Tweak and edit mode I use actually as often or more often than I use sculpting. What is this? Extrude, yeah, that's like something I hardly ever use anymore. Alright, let's see what we have here. Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm wondering if even inking this is the greatest idea ever. Poof. Point being, of all of the activity in the back half of the show, this sequence has the most real frame by frame animation. This probably is gonna be expanded out quite a lot. Like this is probably gonna be the hardest thing in the episode to animate. So what I'm feeling here is kind of like what I was telling this guy in the chat, is that at this point I can tell this is a little deficient. So what I really want to do is go back to the pencil test. Make this hello, and just I want to tighten this up like a lot. I want to do some decent drawing here, and then I'm going to be doing the same on the, there's going to be quite a bit more drawing going on here. All right, so this would actually be ham fist holding the bucket. And the bucket would actually be more like that. That doesn't make sense though. Let's erase this. Well, this is one of those magic moments I was talking about earlier where you go, wait, this isn't right. Okay. So if his hand was actually in this position, let's say, then the handle of the bucket would be here, which would mean the bucket would have to be about like that, something like that. That makes more sense. Yeah, and plus we got water flying out of it and stuff. Come on. I'm not going to bother inking this. Now this I could, because now we're into dialogue, right? We are into dialogue. Okay, question I'm asking myself here is, do I have a picture of Melchizedek from earlier where I know that the characterization is good? Maybe. Let's just play. What the heck? Oh, come on. That's not what I wanted to do. I'm in the lines layer. I need to tilde key solo it. I need to be in edit mode, but I need to be in lasso mode as well. Control C. Okay, so I have no idea if this is going to work. But, okay, I'm going to hit the D key. Put in a blank keyframe. Just for kicks and giggles. Turn this back down. Control Shift, or I should say Control V. Sorry, this needs to be in edit mode. And so now will this work or will this not work? We'll find out. I'm going to take basically all of this, right? And Shift, I need to grab that as well. Okay, so now we're going to hit rotate in proportional editing mode, right? Okay, it looks to me like, oh yeah, let's turn this off, connected only. Okay. So there we go. So now we just want to kind of bend it, right? Go. And this is another example where, geez, like that belongs that wants to be animated, right? When he says his dialogue, there's a little bit of movement. So I don't want to go too far with this because I'm going to want to get this colored in, which, by the way, begs the point that that should be erased because the mouth is always put in a different layer. And now, just for the sick the sadistic, I should say masochistic purpose of doing it, I'm going to go ahead and ink this guy. In other words, what I'm trying to say here, and I'm having a hard time getting it out, is that I've got enough pictures of this guy from earlier in the show that I could paste in here and make it all work, but I don't know, I'm just kind of feeling like, let's put this back at 11 and see how that feels. Nope, it needs to be 12, I think. So this is an interesting way of working. It feels like a traditional technical drawing pen. I like it. It's actually a good way to work. You get that Alex Toth kind of thing going on. It forces you with a fixed width pen, so there's no pressure. It forces you to think about minimalism with your lines. What's the least I can do to convey the feeling? Maybe that sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, I'm not sure, but okay, so I'm gonna do this, but I'm not gonna put the mouth in. So I want to remember this. Radius of 12 seems to be pretty good for, at least for this show. If I was doing Fan Futurama, probably I'd want a little bit thicker line, I suspect. But at the end of the day, it's all speculation. Okay, that looks stupid, so I'm going to redo that. That's fine. Okay. E. Seems to me he had a little bit narrower vibe. You know who he looks like? He looks like John Schlitt. This guy looks like John Schlitt, actually, which is kind of weird. Poof. Okay, I think that's it. I need to get some lunch. So, everybody, thanks for hanging out. And as you guys know, there will be more later.